Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for this presentation. Today, we are going to be presenting how Google is helping companies to revolutionize how they consume and deliver application in the cloud by enabling a service-centric approach to networking. We will be presenting how Private Service Connect and Service Directory allows to connect seamlessly and privately to services and manage them at scale. My name is Pierre Ettori, and I'm a product manager at Google Cloud on Private Service Connect. And with me is Matt. So from an agenda point of view, first we will be looking at the challenges of consuming services at scale. As to talking about this service-centric networking approach that we will be leading and introducing Private Service Connect and Service Directory. And finally, we'll be bringing Private Service Connect and Service Directory together and see how they are better together. Business leaders across industries are prioritizing growth, innovation, and time to market. In fact, in a recent study, 94% of the CIOs indicated that at least 2 of the top 3 business priorities depend on how well technology teams are executing. So the responsibility to deliver services faster is increasingly being placed on their shoulders. This is a huge responsibility that needs to be met with the right tools and software for them to be successful. Many CIOs acknowledge that migrating to the cloud, adopting new application architecture, and building cloud-native services will help them jumpstart growth and accelerate time to market. However, 80% of them report that despite having migrated a portion of their application, they have struggled to achieve the desired level of agility and business benefit. In conversation with technology leaders, 3 main points come up again and again. Number 1, complexity and slow speed of migration. Number 2, they want to modernize now so they can increase efficiency without business disruption. And number 3, they want to consume services faster and focus on value-added services. So companies are trying to consume more and more services faster so they can deliver on their business priorities. But as we have seen, many of those companies are also admitting that they haven't been able to completely unlock the full potential that this service consumption can bring. One of the reasons is that consuming services securely and at scale exposes a lot of complexity on how we connect to them and manage them. And we're going to look at it first in terms of connecting to those services and then on how to manage the application and services at scale. And connecting to services at scale is complex today. Cloud and network architects had to do a lot of pre-planning and engineering to expose services privately. They typically had to exchange infrastructure-level information, like IP addresses and subnet coordination, with technology like VPC peering, so different domains could communicate, or they had to manage complex routing topology. They also had to do that across different organization, networks, accounts, making things a lot more complicated, especially if for regulatory reasons or security best practices, the enterprise wants to keep the services completely protected from internet and only use private IP addresses. Finally, it is not only about how to consume services, but also how to deliver services. And we are seeing an explosion of different types of services. Some are single tenant, some are multi-tenant, some are on-demand, and some are pre-established. So connecting all those services at scale, securely and privately, while enabling innovation and simplicity is really complex. And the other complexity, slowing down companies to deliver on agility and faster time to market, is managing services at scale. As more and more teams and companies are consuming and delivering services, we have seen an explosion of technology focusing on service consumption from cloud and SaaS vendor, or new services framework like microservices architecture. And it is all for the best. However, it came at the cost of having to manage all those services at scale, especially in this world which is multi-everything, like multi-cloud, multi-environments. Multi-environments, we talk about on-prem or GKE or serverless function, but we have also multi-cluster, multi-languages. So the explosion of services, framework, and platform is making the discovery and publishing of those services complex, especially because it needs to be done in a way that is not stifling the creation and growth of those services, Teams should be evolving independently, choosing the best platform or delivery mechanism for their needs, but really leaving DevOps or cloud team with a really complex task to enable this exponential growth, while at the same time keeping system in control and secure. And finally, as we have seen, if the cloud or engineering team ends up spending a significant amount of time mastering complexity to managing services, as the scale increases, it becomes harder to stay as productive. And yet we are putting on their shoulder a lot more responsibility, the responsibility to deliver those key services. So we need to make sure that cloud engineering team can stay focused and productive on value-added tasks. So mastering complexity versus extracting simplicity means being able to rethink the primitives that one exposes to actually truly empower the agility and velocity organizations are looking for. And extracting simplicity means rethinking the complexity exposed from the underlying platform. And many of our technology have evolved starting with infrastructure. And so a lot of the complexity comes from that, come from those systems that are still exposing infrastructure-centric networking instead of focusing on services delivery. And so at Google, we are delivering a service-centric networking approach instead of the infrastructure-centric. So enterprises and end users can focus on connecting, consuming, delivering, and managing services securely at scale. Services-centric networking solution focus on services connectivity and management without having to worry on the complexity of the underlying infrastructure. Organization can finally execute on agility and innovation and enable technology teams to deliver and consume services. Since the underlying infrastructure is not exposed, the connectivity and management of services become much simpler, secure, and private. It accelerates the migration to cloud, since companies can connect simply from on-prem to new services in the cloud faster, while enforcing the security standard and best practices, for example, leveraging private IP space. Finally, by simplifying the management of services at scale, it enables engineering teams to execute and innovate faster. And so with that, we are excited to present our service-centric networking product, Private Service Connect, to connect privately to services, and Service Directory to manage and register services at scale. As you may have seen during the keynote from earlier today, we are excited to present to you Private Service Connect. Private Service Connect allows to connect and consume services easily and privately to many different types of services. By focusing on service-centric networking, Private Service Connect abstracts the underlying infrastructure for both the team consuming and delivering services, which greatly simplifies how they connect and access services. It is doing all of that using private connectivity, meaning the traffic is never exposed to the public internet. And finally, it drastically simplified the communication and upfront planning necessary to build network architecture that used to happen with technology like VPC peering. So Private Service Connect offers many advantages, and we're going to look at that in more deeper details. First, Private Service Connect enables to consume services faster, meaning on one side, consumer of services can operate independently from producer of services. They don't need to pre-agree on the routing or subnets or IP information. And we support any type of tenancy for the delivery of the services. It can be single tenant or multi-tenant services. Private Service Connect really enables a private and seamless connectivity. For consumer, it becomes really easy for them to consume to those services because they just need to create an endpoint on their network. It feels it belongs to them, and that's the only configuration they have to do. They don't need to talk more to the person delivering that service. They just create an endpoint and now can connect to it. And as we have seen, it's a private end-to-end connectivity. The traffic never has to go on internet. It is all secure, meaning the company standards or security standards that are so important to move to cloud. And finally, it really accelerates cloud consumption because it enables to support really any type of services. Could be first-party Google services, like Google services or Google API. It would be third-party partners or vendors offering the services. And it would be also the customer-owned services that they are delivering internally, making that communication faster and that delivery better. Private Service Connect has been built and designed for security, scale, and performance. Security, as we have been talking over and over, is a big, big thing for enterprises to be able to move to cloud. And especially as we consume more and more services that are production ready, you want security. You want to feel that that traffic is secure. And with Private Service Connect, all the traffic stays on Google backbone and is encrypted. And it is leveraging the IP addresses of both the consumer and the producer, really feeling that they are leveraging their private IP spaces. It's scaled for enterprise-grade solution, meaning we can support thousands of private service connection to services, greatly simplifying the type of designs where scalability and quotas or things like that were concerned. And finally, in terms of performance, Private Service Connect has been built with no proxy or middle boxes as part of the solution. It is truly line rate, really allowing the consumer and the producer to access each other's service as if it was VM to VM traffic. And so really thinking in terms of performance here, so we can support really as many type of services and performance hungry services. So if we look a little bit in more detail of Private Service Connect, you will see how simple it is. We have talked so far about the consumer side and the producer side, and we're going to reuse that here. If we look first on the right-hand side of the slide with a producer is offering a service behind a load balancer. That service could be any type of services. The only thing that the producer needs to do to enable Private Service Connect is to create a service attachment. And a service attachment is a new type of resource that's really simple, that just has a name, it has an IP from the producer network, so it belongs on that IP space. And we have built a lot of IAM permission and governance to make sure that the connectivity to that service is going to be secure and following the company best practices. On the consumer side, on the left side, it becomes really simple for them to consume a service, because the only thing that they have to do is actually create an endpoint that will have a target, and the target will be that service attachment. And on top of that, it will have an IP address from the consumer IP space. Again, highlighting how consumer and producer don't need to really pre-communicate or pre-agree on anything. The consumer use whatever is its own IP space, and the producer use whatever is its own IP space. And there's no coordination needed to connect a consumer and a producer service together. So really, as we have seen, for companies to fully take advantage of the desired level of agility that cloud, consuming new services and building cloud-native services promised, we need simple and scalable solution for connecting and managing those services. Private Service Connect focus on the connectivity aspect and enable seamless and private service consumption to Google services, third-party vendor, or customer-owned services. The traffic is never exposed to the internet, and it has the same performance characteristic that VM to VM traffic. And we can support any type of connectivity design, really making building network topology and accessing the service simpler. So now that we can connect to all those services easily, we need a way to manage them at scale. So now I'm going to hand off to Matt to go through Service Directory with you guys.
Thanks, Pierre. My name is Matt DeLoria. I am the tech lead of Service Directory. This is a product that we released to public beta this spring. And I'm really excited to share with everyone here what we've been doing with this product and how it fits into Google Cloud. So with Service Directory, what we're seeing is that managing services as enterprises adopt a more service-oriented architecture, it becomes really challenging to manage. So what we're noticing is that customers are deploying services to both not just on GCP, but they still have some legacy services that they keep on-prem, or they even within GCP they may be running services across different environments. So a customer may not just choose one particular product like GKE. They may choose a handful of products, whether that's being Cloud Functions, Cloud Run, or just legacy VMs or load balance services. So it was becoming really challenging for customers to manage their entire service inventory. So we introduced Service Directory to help solve this problem. So with Service Directory, you can publish, discover, and connect all of your services, regardless of their environment or whether or not they're running on GCP, the third-party cloud, or on-prem. More importantly, it also can scale to thousands of services and endpoints. And it can serve real-time information about your services to any of both your applications and the users of your service, whether that actually be the teams that are deploying them or organizations that they're being shared with. But like, what does Service Directory really enable? And there's, I think, three kind of core tenets of what Service Directory enables for enterprises. The first is that it's a way to discover and publish services from anywhere, right? And this is a really powerful thing. So no matter where your services are, or they're running, or where their applications are, you can always know that you can reach out to Service Directory to find them. So Service Directory has a couple of ways that this is really leverages leverages many of the features within GCP to do this. So Service Directory has a DNS integration where, so if you change or register any of your services to Service Directory, these services become available over DNS within seconds. We also expose a really rich HTTP and gRPC API that allows clients that need to query using metadata and things like that, and be able to do that without having to be on Google's network. Similarly, Service Directory offers a way to catalog your service architecture. And what we mean here is that, so we have services that are spread across many different environments. And this is challenges that, where does this service live? What is the service live? Where is, what region is it in? What type of service is it? Is it a replica? Is it a leader? What kind of policies are associated with the service to make consumption of services simpler? So the Service Directory, you have a single place where you can then actually attach attributes, attach metadata, attach policies, where you can enable all of this. And you can all do this all from, through our API, or you can also do this through Google's Developer Console. And the other important thing about Service Directory is that it's also a way to share services. So organizations, generally, or an enterprise, their services may have to be shared, or they may have to be restricted. So I may only want a specific team within my organization to be able to produce or consume a service, or I may have to share with a third party, which I've entered into a partnership with. And the Service Directory, that's really simple. You can restrict services with IAM policies and VPC service controls to be ensured that the right people are connecting to your services. And lastly, I think one of the most important things is that Service Directory is completely managed. So a lot of ways that enterprises have been dealing with this problem today are either by deploy their own software, write their own software, or use static files to kind of register their services, or have to deploy open source plugins. These can be really challenging to run, and this is actually a really critical piece of infrastructure. So what we want is for our customers not have to worry about running this at all. So with Service Directory, so you get a very simple way and completely managed way of registering your services, but also knowing that it's integrated across the platform. So you have integrations with Stackdriver, our G-Cloud and API libraries, and and also, of course, the Developer Console. So here's kind of really a kind of way that Service Directory can be used in enterprises today. So what I want to really kind of focus on here is that there are really kind of two aspects to Service Directory, right? Is that on the right-hand side, we have the ways that things can be published to Service Directory. So it doesn't matter, if you're looking here, that it doesn't matter what type of service it is, whether or not it's GKE or multi-cluster GKE, whether it's a Google Cloud API, whether it's on-prem, all of these services can be registered into Service Directory. And a lot of these things can be very simply done just by, when you create the resource, by actually specifying the Service Directory name. And then from there, Service Directory will, if desired, can push things to private zone DNS. And we also use IAM to verify that both the producers and the consumers of these services have the correct permissions to do so. Now, on the consumer side, you can see that it doesn't matter, which type of application it is. Everybody can query the API. So if I'm running on the VPC, I have a way of using DNS to actually look this up via DNS, via SRV or A records, or I could use the HTTP or gRPC API if I'm both out of the network or I'm an on-prem data center. Lastly, so what are we doing with Service Directory? So as you saw in many in the previous slides, some of the integrations that we are doing. These we'll be starting to roll out this year, where we're going to be building integrations with when you create an internal load balancer, they'll be automatically registered to Service Directory. Same with GKE services. We're also going to be adding some open source tooling to kind of make it really simple for developers to be able to publish into Service Directory using the tooling that they have today. We're also now announcing, partnerships we had one recently with Cisco that is just announced as part of Google Cloud Next, where Cisco's SD-WAN offering is going to be using Service Directory's ability to inform the location of services. And Cisco is using this to kind of inform network topologies and policies of SD-WAN services. And now for Private Service Connect, so Service Directory is playing a really a critical role here in Private Service Connect, where private services will be registered to Service Directory, and I'm going to allow Pierre to talk a little bit more about why this is so important and how this is a very different way of approaching services.
Thanks, Matt. So Private Service Connect and Service Directory combined together really work hand in hand and provide a better together story where access to services is now easy, secure, and private, no matter if the traffic is coming from on-prem or in the cloud. And as companies connect to more and more services across Google services, third-party vendor, and their own services, Service Directory really helps engineering team to manage publishing and discovering services, allowing technology team to deliver services faster and more securely at scale. So really see Private Service Connect and Service Directory as kind of like foundation for this service-centric networking solution that Google is offering, and we're excited to have you guys try soon. And with that, I would like to thank Matt for presenting with me today.
Thanks, Pierre. Thanks, everyone, today for learning more about Service Directory.
Thanks all for your time. I hope you learned a lot today about Private Service Connect and Service Directory. We're excited for you guys to start testing our product.